Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles episode review. This is going to be for 207 Slash and Destroy, 7th episode of Season 2. Um, Overall, I enjoyed this episode. I thought it was actually pretty good. Took me by surprise. Still probably have a few general series-wide complaints about this episode, and that it's kind of doing some of the stuff I kind of don't want the series to do. But yeah, good episode. It gave Raph a focus. Gave made Spike more interesting with the mutation. But there's still stuff like no April in this episode, no Casey Jones. Kind of similar character development again for the Turtles, and just general kind of lack of focus again, which is I suppose the main thing, my main issue with this series. But as I said, it was a fun episode for what it was. It's just didn't specifically work as like the 7th episode of season 2, when I expect the show to be doing something a bit more. But I'll get into some specifics. The main thing is obviously the title of this episode is Spike gets mutated into Slash the Mutant Turtle, and he has been listening to Raph complain about his brothers for years, a long time we assume, and this really affects him when he's mutated, and he wants Raph to be on his own. So he basically plans to take out the other turtle so Raph can fulfill his potential and stuff like that. He actually makes for a really interesting character, like more sinister than most of the mutants that we've had before, and like right up there with some of the kind of biggest villains in that. Like, it was pretty brutal the way he took out like Donatello, Michelangelo, and everyone, but taking their masks and stuff like that. It was and just tying them around himself. It was this interesting kind of collector type thing where he's just taking their masks to show that he beat them and all this other sort of stuff. I instantly had the complaint of just like another mutation, another kind of villain added to the series when they have so much going on. And then especially with the way they ended it, in that he falls off the roof and you hear this big crack on the pavement. You're just like, is he dead? Have they actually killed off one of the villains for once? But no, they just he's still out there somewhere. And I feel like they've said that about every single villain they've introduced into this series. And season 1 introduced a lot. We've already had a couple of new ones this season, and now another one again with Slash. I'm just kind of like wondering, like, how are they ever going to cover this much stuff? I like that the show has a lot going on, but I feel like all of this stuff is kind of getting to be a little bit of a distraction from the main aspects of the show. In that, like, we haven't seen a whole lot of Shredder this season. We haven't seen an incredible amount of Karai, and then the same issue like with April and all those. Like, when are they coming back into things? Like, this is the main question: is okay, Spike was good for this episode, but is there like a plan for him going forward? Is there a plan for like Snakewee? Is there a plan for all these other villains like Cockroach Terminator? They seem to have set up something with him. All of these villains, and they haven't come back to a lot of them yet, and now there's another one out there. So I just feel like they've almost set up too much stuff. There's too much going on. When now that they've done it, I want them to like address them and get a resolution for all these villains. And I also want the plot to advance. I want the turtles to develop. I want April, Casey, and the whole Splinter, Karai, Miwa thing to advance as well. I'm just like, where's the show going to get the time to do this in like 19 episodes? So I think the rest of the season has a long way to go, but that's all series-wide thing. What this episode did do, basically just focus on like Slash Spike as a villain. It was nice. It was a fun episode by itself. Just in the grand scheme of the series, it wasn't the best episode, but I thought while similar to what Raph has gone through before, the episode did cover some interesting ground, in that the initial start of this episode, it appeared as if it was going to be another Raph dealing with his anger episode, but then it did kind of transform into more of a Raph learning to, I suppose, respect and appreciate his brothers and stuff like that, and that when he had the decision to save his brothers or go with Slash, he did decide to save his brothers, and that they always come first, regardless of how angry he is at them. And I like that they did that, but again, some more kind of clever, unique development for the characters other than the typical Raph has anger issues, let's deal with them type thing. But yeah, it was interesting enough, and then he obviously has to deal with the fact that his pet turtle, who he seemed to love a lot, is now this villain, and he has to deal with that. So maybe they'll bring it back at some point and have him develop more from that. But for what it was a good episode, and I hope that they keep the development. Like, the problem with the development so far in the series has been that, like, Leo's developed as a leader, and then there's another episode where they go against his leadership, and that's happened like 3 or 4 times. Raph has already had the third episode of season 1 dealt with Raph and his anger, and now we've dealt with another one doing that. I just hope they kind of keep things continuity better in the show. But yeah, other part of the episode was just this kind of like really kind of low level kind of B plot of the episode with Leonardo going after the mutagen canister while everyone else deals with Slash. It was interesting in that he was just trying to prove himself, do it on his own, and kind of a small leadership thing, but I think it was more played for laughs, in that he just couldn't get a hold of the canister, having to hide himself from everyone, and then when he finally got a chance to grab it, it just got taken away from him at the last minute, and then he ends up having to reveal himself to this little girl who just doesn't even like scream or anything like that. She just like wants to play with Leonardo, and she pours cups of tea with the mutagen. It's just hilarious. But yeah, he eventually gets it back after the fight, finds him and stuff like this. But it was just a really small part of the episode, but it made it interesting enough that they actually had a B plot to the episode, which was interesting enough. But I would have preferred a B plot to be like April, Casey, Karai, Shredder, maybe even the newly mutated Bradford, whatever he's calling himself now. But it was a fine episode. Anything else happened of note? Not especially. We saw a few bits of Michelangelo playing a game, and that was nice to see that they are like acting like teenagers playing video games and stuff like that. But Splinter giving him some advice, that was good. He tried to help him. He didn't listen at the start, but got it at the end. And I suppose he referenced the fact that he misses his past life, and he misses Miwa, his wife, and stuff like that, and he gets past a lot of that by appreciating what he has now, which Raph now needs to do with the loss of Spike. Which I suppose is interesting if they address it a few more times in upcoming episodes. But yeah, that's pretty much all the episode. It's fairly basic in that there's not an incredible amount to talk about. The design of Spike going into Slash was interesting in that, like, he was huge. I assume he's a slightly different species of turtle, which is why he mutated differently. And yeah, I like the fact that his weapon was this giant mace that fit his size, and the fact that he still has the kind of ninja skills just from watching Raphael. The voice initially was a bit kind of like jarring to me, because I'm just like, usually you'd expect a kind of more kind of dumb style voice for a character like that big, but they gave him a kind of more intelligent style, and he was very, very, very much playing mind games with Raphael, which I think that was the thing that made him like super interesting. If he was just the dumb brute that like everyone can outsmart, it would have been a bit annoying. But the fact that they actually made him like this kind of manipulator almost was actually worked really well for him. So while a lot of the other mutants, I'm just like, oh, another mutant. I feel like Slash is kind of on this other level, because one, he's another mutant turtle, so there's that fact that he's kind of on that level with them. There's a kind of bond anyway between him and Raph, and the fact that they're all turtles, and then the fact that he's actually a pretty interesting villain compared to the rest of them. So yeah, that's the episode review. I don't think there's an incredible amount else to this episode because it was so focused on Raph and then a little bit with Leo, and then Donatello makes a mistake with the forming the mutagen. I like that they actually had that scene there to show that he's still ongoing with the kind of working on a reverse mutagen. So that was a nice continuity moment. But it was those type of moments that I kind of want more of, like, especially with April, like after they just had the kind of makeup scene where they're back being friends again. I would have liked to have seen her just around the layer in this episode to show that that's like happened now, that they're back together now, and it's just not wasn't just forgotten. But I assume that's just because they wanted to focus on Raph here. But yeah, that's the review. Thanks for watching, and bye.